You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast for another IPL roundup. We're a day late, but we're not a dollar short, and we've got a bunch of cricket to get through. I think we've got 3 centuries in 4 games. I'm Jack Hope, I'm joined by Max Rowe-brown. How are you doing, Max Rowe-brown?
Hello, yeah, very good. Looking forward to it.
And top left, for those on YouTube, we have Dan Weston. How are you doing, Dan?
Well, if you'd asked me this a couple of hours ago, I'd have been pretty happy at seeing the prospect of RCB chasing 187. But Sunrise's bowling effort has made me an extremely angry man.
Do you remember the days, Dan, where you used to be a die-hard RCB fan?
It was only because I drew him out of the lottery.
And now here we are. You're raging at them keeping their tournament lives alive. It's been a pretty fantastic week.
Negative net boundary counts qualifying the whole time.
You've got your stats. They've got their vibes. Who's going to win? They're one match from the playoffs. It was a pretty good week in the IPL. We've got 4 games to get through. We've got the aforementioned Sunrisers Hyderabad v RCB. We've got Punjab Kings v Rajasthan Royals. We have Mumbai Indians v Lucknow Supergiants. I nearly did Mumbai Indians v Mumbai Indians there. And finally,
that'd be quite a good game, actually.
It would be quite fun, yeah. All the batters v all the bowlers.
Yeah.
And finally, we've got Delhi Capitals v Punjab Kings. There are teams who have had their tournament hopes extinguished this week, and there are teams who have kept them alive. It's been good. It's been really good fun. Before we get into that, Max, though, I need you to tell everyone about our sponsor.
Well, our sponsor, Serious Cricket. They are purveyors of all good and wonderful cricket equipment, and you can go to their website, seriouscricket.co.uk, and get 10% off cricket equipment with the code TCP23. So go and do that. I need to go and do that because a bit of my face mask, wicket-keeping face mask, fell off last night. So I need a new one. So I'll be going there and getting something new. 10% off.
Is that why you let? Is that why you let all those buys past?
Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Thank you.
Right, let's do today's game first. Because it was most recent, and it had some pretty spicy action. Sunrisers, they batted first, and it looked like, well, it was kind of another one of those games for Sunrisers where nobody does anything except Klaasen, who is having a phenomenal season. This time he tops himself, his best performance of the year by miles. He gets 104 off 51 balls, 6 fours, 6 sixes, 8 fours. And Harry Charrington-Brook back in the side, 27 off 19 for him, his second best performance of the IPL. Is he edging away from biggest flop territory? Who knows? We'll get to that, I'm sure. In response, Royal Challengers Bangalore, they came out like they do in every match, like a train. Like it's like they double park the bus, isn't it? In the first few overs of every match. Except they kind of carried on today. Virat, 100 of 63 balls, 12 fours, 4 sixes, strike rate of 158. Bath at the other end, 71 of 47 balls. They both managed to get out near the end, so we get a tiny amount of Big Show Glenn Maxwell and Michael Bracewell. But they win in the last over with some comfort, I would say, chasing down that score of 186. It was a pretty pathetic bowling effort from Sunrisers Hyderabad, that has to be said. And there were some other really curious moments, like before the game, Aidan Markram saying he didn't know why Umran Malik wasn't being selected. You would hope that the captain of the franchise was vaguely aware of why the most exciting young player they have wasn't available for selection, but not at Sunrisers. Confusion
You'd
reigns.
like to think the captain might even be involved in someone's selection himself.
Confusion reigns. They lose another match. It's their second. They lose another one on this show. They've done the double on this episode. Dan, what really got you raging? Let's start there.
I think ultimately, it felt like what I would call like a end of school term display And it's quite ironic, actually, because I think a school team captain could have worked out a better strategy than what Sunrisers has adopted. So, okay, so we have a situation whereby like the world, the vast majority of anyone who's remotely interested on Twitter about cricket, T20 cricket or the IPL, we all know that the best matchup to bowl against Kohli and Faf is the ball turning away from them, specifically left arm pace a lot of the time. Sorry, left arm spin, I should say, left arm orthodox spin. So Sunrisers in their infinite wisdom went pace heavy to start with, which was a fantastic strategy to start with. And then brought in Mayank Dagar, who bowled really, really nicely. I mean, this guy has actually got really good numbers in the SMAT. And funny enough, when they brought in a competent left arm orthodox, they tied RCB up and pushed the rate up a little bit. And then they decided in the middle of all that, no, it's working a little bit too well, this left arm orthodox to Kohli and Faf. So we'll stick in a part-time off spinner against them instead, Glenn Phillips. And what baffles me, one, is that Glenn Phillips is strictly a part-timer. He's a part-time wicketkeeper as well. And
he's a 0 hours contract bowler, isn't he? I mean, that's what he is.
Aidan Markram's a part-time off spinner.
Yeah.
I mean, Aidan Markram is immeasurably, data-wise, a better bowler than Glenn Phillips. Why doesn't he bowl himself? I've got no idea. And all this stuff about, I don't know why Imran Malik's not playing. And there was a quote the other day about something about, maybe we'll try some new players out, but I'm not sure if we'll be allowed or something. Words to that effect, kind of thing. It was a quote about that as well. And I was like, because obviously, like, there's stuff going on behind the scenes that maybe we're not so sure about. And it kind of reminded me, actually, about that time we focused on Tom Moody's tweet to me a few years back. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
And obviously there might be kind of some problems behind the scenes, but ultimately, whether you're Tom Moody, whether you're Aidan Markram, whether you're Brian Lara, this is not the first season that you've been at the franchise. So if you're taking a role of decision-making and responsibility, it's pretty likely that you know what you're signing up for before you start. So I don't really have a lot of sympathy for that, to be honest with you.
Max, we've done Sunrisers. I think in the interest of balance, we should talk a little bit about Kohli's 64 ball century. Yeah. And then we'll talk about Clarkson's better 54 ball century. but Kohli, in the chase, this was prime Kohli, wasn't it? Like if you had Cricket Ultimate Team, this is the Kohli that would be a 99. Good.
Yeah, I mean, you said they sort of double parked the bus, RCB. They double parked the bus, but if it was the bus from Speed, I think it kept going today. I was watching this thinking, well, this is just microcosm RCB season. They're chasing a reasonable total. Faf and Kohli have got off to a really good start. Fine. At some point they'll get out, and then it'll all fall in a heap, and it'll be a really dicey finish. That bit never really happened. So this was a model of, I guess, what happens when it all goes right for RCB. And Virat Kohli, he did catch up a bit, didn't he? Run rate wise, it wasn't 158 all the way through, but it was really impressive. He did take on the spinners a bit more than he has done in the past and recently. And it was quite funny that he just hit 6 to get to his 100 and then immediately got out. That was like, yeah, I'm done. See you later. Got my numbers. I'm out of here. that felt quite on point for Virat. But I mean, ultimately, it was just a really comprehensive performance, and it was a bit like playing against your kids in the garden. That was sort of the difference in level that I was seeing from Kohli and Faf taking on this chase. It never looked in doubt, did it, at any point?
They won with the comfort of a 4-over win with 4 balls to go.
4 balls left. Yeah.
Like it doesn't quite. When you look at the scoreboard here, it doesn't quite tell.
Doesn't tell the story
of how easy they kind of were making it look. Virat, some of those drives on the up. We don't talk about like looks in cricket very, very much on this podcast. I mean, we tend to be we probably lean towards stats and data and crazy off-field narratives. rather than being like, oh, that guy is beautiful to watch. We very rarely, actually, I think, appreciate beauty in cricket, but we have to appreciate a little bit here, Virat Kohli and some of those cover drives on the up. Like, I don't think anyone has ever. I mean, there can't be anyone ever who plays that shot with such authority. Like, the ball's hitting the top of off stump, and he's smacking it through cover for 4. It's really, really good cricket, isn't it?
Yeah, and it didn't look like it was the simplest pitch to play on either, did it? I mean, when the spinners came on, they definitely got it to grip. There was definitely a bit in there. So, add it to that, really. Like, fine, it's one thing doing it on an absolute deck. But when there is a little bit in there and you have to perhaps think about that, then it's all the more impressive. But, lovely to see.
Yeah.
And he's leading in hundreds, is he, Virat?
I think he went level maybe with Gale. I think he went level with Gale. I don't think he's leading, but which I guess is leading, isn't it? He's joint leading, yeah, which is good. Faf, obviously, we should give a shout out to him. We've talked a lot about Faf on this podcast this season, and rightly so. 71 or 47 for him. Good batting from the skipper. There's a good
just par for him this year, really.
It's about his average. Yeah. There's a good Matt Roller article out on ESPN as well. If anyone wants to go and have a read about how they decided to pick Faf as captain, and it's kind of an interesting insight into how you replace somebody who's a big personality and what you do there. And it actually showed a level of sort of. It's not. I don't know if strategy is the right word, but psychological awareness. Perhaps they didn't just pick like one of the guys. They actually they went through like the list of players in the world that would be capable, I suppose, of stepping into that guy's shoes, but also stepping into the shoes of the guy and opening the batting with him. Like it's sharing the space at the same time. So
it's quite a small shortlist. That
it is. Yeah.
And also, I mean, like, if a cricket team isn't doing that level of due diligence, then it's probably a bit of a problem. I'm not sure that
crazy stuff.
You'd like to think that all teams, you'd like to think that all teams would have thought, okay, well, if we haven't got a captain, who's the best option to be a captain? And ultimately, sometimes you might think that picking a non-specialist captain is actually a good value, because there aren't that many good captains available, and they might be really overpriced, especially if they're overseas guys like Faf, Warner, and you could see maybe at that time of the mega auction in early 2022 that they could it wouldn't have taken that much of a turn of events for them to be not an automatic pick much longer in their teams. So it's easy to say it once you've got it right, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think they did. I mean, like, the thought process was there. Let's talk a little bit about Sunrisers. First of all, 5-star performance from Heinrich Klaasen, his first IPL century. I mean, that's not mega news. He hasn't played that many games, but it was a really, really good one, wasn't it, Max?
It was again everything he'd done so far this season, but managed to extend it a bit more. I mean, he's come in and tried to dig Sunrisers out of multiple holes. He must have some quite sore back, a bit of a small back, some quite sore arms from all the dirt he's been trying to shovel for the rest of his teammates. But this time, he completed the job and dug the entire trench, whereas he'd often, just maybe, not his fault either up to this point. No, he's been in a position where he's had to constantly hit sixes, and he's done it for 20 balls and then unfortunately just not quite managed to clear the guy on the fence and got out, and then Sunrisers have fallen in a heap. But this time it carried on, and he was incredible against pace. He was incredible against spin. He just took on everyone, and he's one of the top players in T20 cricket in the world at the moment. I think he's in such a good vein of form. He was doing it for South Africa. He was doing it in the SA20, and now he's come, to the IPL, where, like you said, he hasn't played that much, really, in a team that's playing like crap, basically. And so he's been a cut above, and I just continue to be really impressed by Heinrich Klaasen as a cricketer, and I think South Africa have got a real talent on their hands.
I agree.
And so do Sunrisers. It's a shame about the rest of them.
We know about the orange cap. We know about the purple cap. I'm wondering if there should be a heavy lifter of the year award because the players who are certainly doing the bulk of that for their
They could-
teams right now.
They could
We
probably get a
talked about
sponsor.
Clarkson and we talked
The
about
one-man team cap.
100% they'll get a sponsor. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Huel protein powder heavy lifter of the year. Like, yeah, it's,
It writes itself.
JCB.
yeah, JCB.
Like,
Damn.
seriously, I'm going to actually work that one out and work out like kind of like the percentage of runs that a player has scored for their teams. I bet you Klassen and Fafa are two of the highest.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
had quite a lot of questions in on Twitter about SRH. We're going to do a couple of them now. We might get to a couple later in the show. I'm going to bracket two here. So Anirudh and Srikanth asked two similar questions, which is basically this. I'll read it. I'll read out Anirudh's. Do you think Lara and the coaching staff need to be sacked after this bad season or be given a chance next season? Who do you think needs to be retained or released among the Sunrisers players as well? Dan.
Okay, so for me, I definitely think they should all be sacked. And I don't like saying things like that, but ultimately it's difficult to really even say that they're qualified to do the job to start with. A trio of Lara, Muralitharan, Stain. I mean, if you're creating the world's best three-man cricket team from 10 years ago or 15 years ago, probably about that. But just because you're a great player does not make you a great coach or a great manager. And I had, I was on record saying on this podcast before the tournament, it was a real red flag for me about Sunrisers with the inexperienced coach and captain combo. That was my sort of worry about them. And I think it's been really well founded. The decision making that they've made in matches has been bizarre. The decision making in terms of selection has been unfathomable. And I think they're 14 games in, and they've still got zero idea what their best team is. And they're chopped and changed like non-stop.
Yeah.
I mean,
Heinrich Klaassen was up at 4 today.
Well, yeah, and Harry Brook in and out, or out, in out, shake it all about. Gavin Phillips in and out. It just makes no sense whatsoever. And then the bowlers, they've got no faith in any of their bowlers, quite clearly, apart from Boovy. And they've got no balance with the four kind of overseas batters. I mean, you think they'd looked at Delhi and worked out that doesn't work very well. Yeah, a clean sweep in terms of management for me is needed. But ultimately, if there are problems behind the scenes and a lot of cooks trying to get involved and ultimately spoiling the broth, it doesn't really matter who is the coach or the captain. The same problems are probably going to persist. Although, saying that, I mean, I can't imagine the owner turning around to Aidan Markram before the game and going, "Oh well, when Kohli and Faf are really set, make sure you bowl Glenn Phillips to them." I just can't see that happening.
Max, if
And
you
in terms of release,
go on, Dan. Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, else about released players and retained players as well. So I put 11. I've got 11 players I'd keep.
That many?
Partly because of price points and scarcity of the market in mini auctions, it's going to be really hard to have a complete overhaul revamp. And I'm very cognizant of price here as well. So I went with Markram, Samad, Phillips, Klassen, Abhishek Sharma, Boovy, Fazal Haq Farooqi, Markande, Dagar, and probably the two domestic pacers who haven't played much. Hopefully, the new management would give them a better role and have more faith in them. Tyagi and Umar Malik, who aren't that expensive compared to what you might have to pay in auction for players, and is a really scarce resource market as well. So that's 11 players that I would think about building the squad around. Maybe there might be one or two, like an overseas spinner that you might want to buy back at auction if you need to. But overall, yeah, cut about just over half of them.
Would Markram keep his job?
No.
Okay.
No, not for me.
There we go. Dan is culling Sunrisers Hyderabad, and yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty
You can
disappointing
see
season.
why.
It's been a pretty disappointing season. Right, we're up to 20 minutes. We're going to take a break here, and we're going to come back. We'll just do the games in reverse order. So whatever happened yesterday, we will talk about next.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. We've been saying like. Then I found out, watching another YouTube channel, that it's actually a thumbs up, not a like. So if you're like wondering what the hell I've been banging on about for
That explains the lack of engagement.
2 years, now you know. Click the thumbs up. And obviously subscribe as well, get involved. I'm enjoying reading people in the chat. I can see Human Being, Nanny, Rickon, and AN0989 chirping away at each other there. So do keep that coming. And if you want to support the pod more directly, head over to Patreon, patreon.com/thecricketpod. If you're lazy, just go in the show notes and it's all there for you. Just click it and you go to it. For $5 a month, you get a bonus show every single week. You get access to our Discord. And when Max gets around to arranging it, you get an extra show every month. But Max is incredibly lazy. Do you want to respond to that charge, Max?
Yeah, I'll respond to that by saying we tried to get some stuff. Ross was also involved in organising these. He's in Tuscany.
Like a fucking pair of clowns.
Hasn't been around for about 15 years. And also, it's quite a lot at the moment, isn't it? When the IPL's done, we'll get back on it and we'll cover the backlog.
Absolute clowns. That's what I have to work with. Fools.
Yeah.
I get the feeling Ross gets blamed for everything.
Well, he's hardly ever here. So if he's not here, he gets blamed. Simple.
It's like Brian Lara at Sunrisers. That's what he is. A big name from the past. Just hanging around. Right, let's go back in time to yesterday. Max.
He's practically inept as well.
Oh my goodness, you should hear some of the advice he gives me on the cricket field. Max,
Yes.
what happened in the cricket yesterday?
Well, we were off to Dharamsala yesterday for Delhi versus Punjab, and we saw the much heralded return of Prithvi Shaw. We called for it, we got it, and he scored a 50. Well done him. David Warner hit not 1 6, but 2 sixes.
Oh,
That's lots. Then Riley Russo came in and he hit 6 sixes, and basically put everyone to the sword. In particular, poor old Harpreet Brar, who bowled the final over and dished up some very slow, very full tosses, and disappeared into the crowd. And just to rub some salt into the wound, Rabada helped him out by letting one through his legs on the boundary with the last ball. And that final over took Delhi up to 213 for 2. And that was probably the difference in this game, because Punjab, in response, well, we saw something that we all like to see, didn't we? We saw a retired out. One of the great moments in T20 cricket. We love to see it.
it was a real batter too.
Hey?
It was a real
batter, yeah. And it
on.
didn't really work because Jitter Sharma came in and got a 3-ball duck. Sherritt Khan got 6 off 3. Sam Curran got 11 off 5. And Harpreet Brar was run out after facing a single ball. So it didn't exactly go to plan. But around all that, Liam Livingstone was trying to do the impossible and almost did the impossible. Hit a 6 off a no ball in the final over. Brought the equation back into realistic realms, and then missed the free hit. And it was a crazy game. Balls flying all over the place. Nice to see Livingston back, but yeah, a couple of probably clutch moments that decided it in the end. That final over from Harpreet Brar, which I assume is what got everyone ticking, and just in general, a lot of dropping from Delhi Capitals. If they could catch, it would have been over a whole lot quicker. Yeah,
kind of a weird game. Was it? Can we talk? Let's talk first about, I think, the major talking point, which is the retired out. I mean, this is it's the game that knocks Punjab basically out. I mean, I think there is like some mad net run rate swing situation that perhaps could come into play, but let's say they're effectively out. We have to acknowledge that first. Second, the retired out. Now, my take on this: good decision taken, probably 10 balls too late. I think at the point they retire him out, they had 30 balls left and they needed 85 or something pretty crazy like that.
85 to match the target for super over.
Yeah.
So 17 and
I liked the progressiveness of it. I don't know what they were waiting for, Dan.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If you're going to do it, you got to do it a little bit earlier, especially when you've got like a really massive batting depth as well.
They're waiting for him to get his 50.
I've got no idea. Nothing surprised me, so I don't know. I think there's a few things I want to say about this. And first of all, Atava Tailich, I think, is a really talented young player, but perhaps really chasing 214 is probably not his game, if that makes sense, or not what he's in the team for, or being recruited for anyway. But I think he's a really talented young player, and actually someone who I definitely look to keep around if I was Punjab, and certainly a pretty valuable domestic batter for the future. Livy how great was it to see Livy with 9 sixes, and yeah, almost gave my boys a chance of getting through. But ultimately, I get a lot of messages from Punjab fans on Twitter. So many messages, and the real thing that got them ticking was Harpreet Brar in the last over. I mean, that's not Harpreet Brar's fault. He's not in the team to bowl the last over. And I mean, you've got 4 pretty decent death bowlers, 2 of which have bowled out, and 2 of which didn't bowl their full quota. She's one of them, and this is a role clarity thing, where we have, I think, a fairly inexperienced captain making questionable decisions because they're being very reactionary rather than going with preordained plans. So I remember, I want to say it's 2018, T20 Blast, Worcestershire won the comp. It was all year they won the comp, and they bowled Pat Brown and Wayne Parnell in tandem at the death, 4 overs at death, come what may. Southern Brave in the 100, same with Mills and Jordan when they're fit. They might bowl 17 or 18, 19 or 20 in different order, but they're bowling them 4 overs at the death, no matter what. That's what they're in the team for. That's what they've been recruited for. And that's what you recruited Arshdeep Singh for, and probably Rabada too. So use them. Don't use a left arm orthodox against a set left-hander. It's just nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
The only time it could possibly make sense is if you're at a ground, where it's a dust bowl and it's like almost impossible to play spin. But it's Dharamsala.
Punjab didn't take a single wicket by spin, so I'm pretty sure we haven't got Japok to catapult into Dharamsala.
Absolutely.
Honestly, baffling. And we talk about refined margins a lot in pro sport, but could it have been different? Could Punjab have been tasting a few less? Could that have given Livy something realistically to aim for in the chase? And you think, well, maybe if Delhi got a few less, Tide retired and over to earlier, could that have been a different result? We don't know. We're never going to know. But you've got to give yourself the best chance of achieving that result, and I don't think Punjab did yesterday.
It is a pretty weird thing to do, wasn't it? I mean, like, there's no other way of putting it.
Normally, you can find a shred of logic in it, can't you? There's like, you say, okay, it's a bit, left field, but I can see why it's been done. I can't see it. I genuinely can't.
I was trying to find some news about Arshdeep being injured or something like that, because he's pretty. Well, it doesn't seem to be the case. There's no news that he's been injured. Like, there's no.
Rabada was also there still.
Yeah, and Rabada's also there. And actually, I mean, like, it's not Arshdeep, for guys who've got any kind of a sample size, is probably, he's in the top 10 death bowlers in the IPL. He's not Bumrah, but he's in the pack that isn't Bumrah. That's basically they're basically your tiers. You've got Bumrah, and then you've got the Norkie is really, really good. would probably be second, and then it's close between a lot of the other guys. Probably depends on conditions and who they're facing as to who you would pick to bowl for your life. Yeah. There's no, I don't it, and he's not too bad up front as well. I mean, I just don't understand how you actually end up in a situation where probably your best bowler has bowled 2 out of their 4 overs, and you've used Harpreet Brar at the death. Like it's yeah.
So there was a game a few games ago where Bra's entry points were so obvious, and he only bowled 1 over. And then this game where like his entry points are baffling, and he bowls 3. Go figure.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about Mark Crumb's decision to bowl Glenn Phillips. I mean, this I think does eclipse that in terms of how bad.
You just want to know as well, don't you? You just want to grab him by the scruff of the neck. These captains would be like, "What are you doing? Explain yourself. I want to know why you were doing this."
But no, what happened is. Well, I was going to say,
deficient. Yeah. There's no challenges there. Not like there is in football. You know, if that was a football decision, and like, let's say your team was 1-0 down with 5 minutes to go, and you bought off his star striker and you put on a centre back, there'd be 100 questions about that.
Mate, I've been watching Chelsea all year. You don't need to imagine that.
There was a few games ago. Do you remember the match where Kohli got a 50 and it was quite slow? Not the one where Simon Doull chirped up. It was another one. They were chasing 180 or 190. It was a lot of runs, and he got a very slow 50. And it arguably cost the team the game. And afterwards, instead of someone saying, do you think you're costing the match there, Virat? They started asking him about his wife. It was like, what is this? What are you doing? Like, yeah, what's this got to do with anything? With the bat, Riley Russo, I just want to round off on this game before we do the next one. 82 off 37 for him. He's not really done a lot in the IPL.
Nice of him to turn up when it mattered, eh?
It was good to see that, and I quite like it when a player breaks the kind of narrative in this way. I mean, like, he was one of those players that I think a lot of people were sort of saying, oh, because he's from South Africa or, you know, whatever, he won't be any good in India ever. And so I think it's good. It's nice to see when a player who is clearly good enough to be in the IPL proves people wrong. I think that's nice, and I'm sure for Riley, he enjoyed his after-match beers up in the Himalayas. Might have got himself a contract for next year with that innings as well, which is decent.
It's just a shame for Delhi it didn't happen while they still had a shout of actually qualifying for anything.
Well, I mean, like, he's been. I mean, to be fair to him, he's played 8 matches. What have they played? 13 games. He's played 8 matches, batted up and down the order. Like, it's not. He's had to watch Mitch Marsh do whatever Mitch Marsh does at number 3 as a warm-up to bat in every single game. So you're coming in like with Dave Warner batting to get you behind the rate, and Mitch Marsh getting out to mean that you're, 2 wickets behind where you want to be. And then it's like, now solve this in your in-out batting lineup. It's I don't think it's been an easy job, but that was a good innings, and good work to Riley for that. Should we move on to the next match?
Let's do it.
Let's move on to the next match then. We're going back in time to Tuesday. Lucknow v the Mumbai Indians. It was a pretty good game, Max. Do you want to talk us through it?
It was. And Lucknow started off. Have you ever played there's an internet game called Quap where you have to press the letters Q, W, O, and P on your keyboard to make this guy run.
Yes.
And it started off like that. Lucknow basically face planted without getting out the blocks. They were 35 for 3 at the end of the power play when Quinton de Kock was out. And they were looking in trouble. But then Stoinis happened. He was hitting sixes with one hand, just because he can, because he's a man mountain. He's a beast. Krunal Pandya retired hurt, and then did come back to bowl, so probably wasn't that hurt. Someone could have told you can't just retire out if you want. That's okay now. But either way, Marcus Stoinis single-handedly propelled Lucknow to 177 for 3. He appeared to be on a different plane to everyone else and took them to a pretty good total. But Mumbai basically won the game at the halfway stage. They were 103 for 2 after 11. When Ishan Kishan got out, they were going great guns. It was all easy peasy. And then it all ground to a halt. And, Surya Yadav ramped onto his own stumps. That was enjoyable to watch. Wadera tied things up, just chewed up a load of balls, and it all went wrong. And Mohsin Khan came back, which was nice. He did well. Nice to see him back in the frame. But it was all about that final over. Cameron Green had the opportunity, but it was an array of wide Yorkers thwarted Mumbai, while all Tim David could do was watch on. 32 from 19 at the other end. You wonder if he'd managed to see a few more of the balls himself, Tim David, whether they might have got over the line, Mumbai. But it's a big result in the it's a big result for RCB. That's who it's a big result for. But in the scheme of qualification, it's quite an interesting one.
It's a big result for Lucknow as well, isn't it? With their bonus point, gets them up to 50. Well, it's not a bonus point, like it was a rain-off point, but in the context,
it's a bonus point for Lucknow in that game.
Yeah, so they're up to 15, which might be enough. It still could be enough. They might need to win their final match, but it puts them in the catbird seat, as they might say in the southern states of America. Stoinis is the thing that stood out to me. I think Stoinis is a really interesting player, and he is in a group of players who kind of they seem to be very binary. They either fail spectacularly or they succeed spectacularly. There doesn't seem to be much.
The Liam Livingstons.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a few
Phil
other.
Salts.
I'd throw Glenn Maxwell in there and Puran.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're completely all or nothing, but
mine.
they're not really thinking about stability when they go out to bat. It's boundaries, and that leads to a lot of low scores.
They're the guys that some Guardian writers might describe as mediocre overseas middle order hitters.
Yeah, they are. That's exactly who they are, and I think like Stoinis, he hadn't had a great season until this innings. But this is the value of these players: is that when they do have a great game, they can kind of salvage for your team what has been a bit of a miserable performance. Otherwise, I mean, like without him, they're truly screwed in this match. So well done to Stoinis. For that, and it means that like he'll get to the end of the season, he'll have scored about 400 runs at 150, and everyone says nice work. Nobody remembers how he got there. They just look at that stat line and be like, yeah, Stoinis. So I like that. And then also the last over, Dan. I mean, that's a pretty tough last over statistically speaking, I think, isn't it? To bowl to Cameron Green, who's a pretty decent player, and Tim David, who's like the Terminator. 11 runs though. Would you know what did you give him much chance of steering LSG to victory?
No, put it shortly. So I think it was about. I think when Sia Kimiadov got out, they needed 63, of just under 6 overs, so just about 10 and over. And I said to my wife, Mumbai will win this if Tim David is there at the end. Well, that spectacularly went wrong, but I think I had all
your credibility gone.
I know. Absolutely. So look, I seriously rate Tim David. I have seen enough of him to know that he is an unbelievable talent. But I think sometimes in these tight chases, he can show his inexperience a little bit. And sometimes I think that he has too much faith in the guy at the other end. So he should just be trying to get it done himself, With regards to a game earlier in the season, I can't remember who it was against, but a similar thing happened, and he just like let the other guy have the strike, and they fell a few runs short. And then the same again with for Lanks last season in the T20 Blast, and he got it was I remember it was against Derby. There's a really, really like standard chase, like we shouldn't have had any difficulty whatsoever, and he let Rob Jones get on strike, who couldn't hit it off the square, but who's got one of the lowest boundary percentages in the whole comp. So he shouldn't have let that situation manifest itself to start with. He should have just retained the strike and got it done himself. I mean, like, yeah, that's something that I think that maybe he needs to work on a bit in terms of like that match management. But I think as a talent, yeah, I still stand by what I said. Ultimately, if if you with 6 overs left, you need 10 and over roughly, and you've got Tim David coming in. You think if he's going to be there at the end, they're going to win. It didn't happen.
It's a fair shout. I think probably a bit difficult if you're Tim David to be saying to Cameron Green, "No, I'll stay there." Well, we won't have that single. I'll do it. Maybe Rob Jones, but like Cameron Green's a different kettle of fish.
Show us your boundary percentage. That's what I'll say. Show us your boundary percentage. Show us your 6.
Carry them around in a card in their pocket every change of overs. Let's just have a look. Hang on a minute.
I feel like.
What are your stats against left arm spin?
I mean, I kind of get where you're coming from in that this is Tim David that we're talking about, but Cameron Green has I've got it up here, 35 boundaries in 192 balls. That's not awful, and he like regularly is hitting the ball. Like it's I feel like, I mean, like the negative I would say in that situation is that Cameron Green's basically just come to the crease. Like that's why I would say maybe don't turn the strike over. Maybe keep it to yourself. But
I mean, the pair of them finished off a game earlier in the season between them. So I mean,
it swings around. I think part of it has to go to the bowler here as well. I think.
What would Dre Russ do?
What would Dre Russ do?
Well, he can't run, so he'd probably just stand there or get out because he plays for KKR and they somehow lose anyway, don't they? Let's just have a look forward for these two teams. Lucknow, they play KKR on Saturday. I think that's the later game on Saturday. And then Mumbai, they play Sunrisers on Sunday. Max, are either of them going to the playoffs?
I think they're both going.
I think they're both going. So you think?
I think they're both going. I think they're both beating those teams. So, and I think RCB against Gujarat. Yeah. I know Gujarat are qualified, and therefore they maybe don't need to. And they're qualified top 2 as well, aren't they? So they're solid that. But I don't think they'll change too much because they want to keep a good thing going for the playoffs. They've got 2 bites of the cherry, sure, but they're going to be going into that. Qualifier 1, is it? I can't remember which the exact names are, but the shootout for the final. Yeah. You don't want to mess things up too much. Sure, maybe rest a couple of guys, but they don't want to, mess up the apple cart too much. So I think they'll still be gunning for it, and I think RCB will fall short, and Mumbai will sneak in. That's where I'm seeing it. Or alternatively, what will happen is Mumbai will beat Sunrisers by about 400 runs and overhaul the net run rate.
I think that actually,
could also happen.
That actually might happen. Yeah. Right. Let's wrap up this portion of the show. Still to come on the Cricket Podcast, we've got a Gill century and we've got questions from Twitter. So we'll be back in 2 seconds to deal with all of that.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Welcome back, gang, to the Cricket Podcast. We've got one more match in this week's IPL to talk about before we get to questions. The match was Monday's game between Gujarat and Sunrisers. Batting first, let's get straight into this one. Batting first, Gujarat Titans made 188 runs for the loss of 9 wickets. But if you looked below that, the bigger story was Shubman Gill with his first IPL century. 101 runs off 58 balls. He did it in 4s. It wasn't like, we were just talking about Tim David. This is not how Tim David would have scored a century. 13 4s and a single 6. In fact, if you actually go on the highlights for this match, there's not a lot of Shubman Gill considering the damage he did. It's very limited appearances. Sai Sudarsan was the only other bat to get any runs at all, really. 47 off 36 from him. But it got Gujarat up to a pretty good score. The other piece of news that I think we need to touch on is the second kit for Gujarat Titans. It's a real humdinger.
I love it.
It's so good. So well done, Gill. Well done, Sudarsan. But mainly well done, Kitman, for coming up with that. In response, Sunrisers Hyderabad. Oh my God, I can't believe we have to talk about this team again. They were terrible. They were really, really terrible. They were 6 for 1, 11 for 2, 12 for 3, 29 for 4. And 45 for 5 effectively at the end of the power play. Some good bowling by Mohammad Shami, who was really, really impressive again. We saw a little bit of Yash Dayal last seen disappearing over the boundary thanks to Rinku's thing. He went for 31 in the entire game, which I think was the same number of runs he went for in that last over, wasn't it? So, wow.
I think so.
Yeah. What a turnaround. What a turnaround for him. Obviously, the only person to get any runs for Sunrisers was Heinrich Klaassen, but we've already talked about how good he has been. So let's skim over that slightly. Gujarat, another pretty efficient performance, Max.
Yeah, and like we said, they win in all sorts of different ways. And this time it was Shubman Gill's turn, and he was playing somewhere else to everyone else. He would just, I don't know, transported everyone to a different ground and decided he was going to play them there. Well, everyone else had to actually play in Ahmedabad. Because honestly, he was supreme. It was such an impressive display. And it wasn't really a 6-hitty pitch or ground. So I'm going to let him off with the 13 fours and the 1-6. And I'm going to say that we were all wrong when we said maybe he's not going to be the T20 star because he doesn't hit enough sixes. I think he's just clearly a supreme player. This was, I genuinely can't tell you how impressed I was by this performance, because he just was a cut above everyone else at the ground. The shots he was playing were delightful to watch. It was beautiful. You talked about beauty in the first bit about Virat Kohli. This is what it was. It was just really enjoyable to watch, like cricket-wise. It was just fun. It was just really nice.
There was
cricket.
There were some stats to back up the beauty, Max. CricViz, they've got a model which is, we don't really know necessarily how they work this
control.
out. Yeah, we don't necessarily know how they work this out, but according to CricViz, it was the best 100 ever in the IPL. Basically, it had the fewest false shots and the most shots played with a measure of control. So I guess that's another way of saying he always hit the ball where he wanted to hit the ball.
yeah. No, it was supreme, and it just goes. The rest of the team when he was out and they were trying to put a bit of a gloss on it at the end. Bhuvi Kumar picked up some thank you very much wickets to pad his stats. It was no one could clear anyone, and that just sort of highlighted how good it was. Nice run out for Dasan Shanaka for no apparent reason. That was good. He didn't get out, so he did all right. But like really, really impressive. Sunrisers, absolute toilet, but we know that.
Dad, it's statistically Shubman Gill's best season in the IPL now in terms of runs and strike rate. It's a nice development course he's on so far, isn't he? Still only 23.
Well, he was my pick, if you remember, for the orange cap. Unfortunately, he's second to Faf, but guaranteed.
He ain't catching him either.
Guaranteed qualification for Gill.
Well, that's true.
And Faf does not guarantee qualification, so I'll still hold out hope. But I'm not too disappointed with second place. Yeah, I think he's got a long career ahead of him in international cricket as well in this format. I mean, India now with guys like Gill and Jaiswal, Gaikwad. Ishan Kishan's now had a sort of better second half of the tournament to first half. I think we can say goodbye to the likes of Rohit Sharma now, surely.
I mean, you say that, but
Rohit Sharma and who else?
Yeah, I mean, like you would think so. You would think so. I mean, it would almost be a waste, wouldn't it, to not have some of these guys. Some of these guys played international cricket. Max, as you said, it was sort of another way that Gujarat were able to win a game as well. They're going to have to go to the Chepauk, and there's a pretty high chance they're going to be playing CSK in that eliminator or qualifier one. Do you think I mean, I don't know what the grounds of the situation is, but like, one, what are the chances of it being a road? And two, do you think that the team built for the Chepauk can derail this juggernaut?
They could. And it would be. It wouldn't be that much of a surprise, would it? But I don't think CSK haven't been that all-conquering at the Chepauk this year as they have been in the past. I don't It has turned and it has been bogged down in the middle overs, but we've seen fast starts from CSK, and if it does come down to that, I think that's going to be a really key battle with the power play bowling. And Mohammed Shami in this power play was really, really impressive. I know he was bowling against a bunch of idiots, but he was getting movement off the pitch. He was getting swing. It was genuinely hard to face. Like, for all the problems Sunrisers have had with their batting and not knowing who to play where, Mohammed Shami was seriously impressive and, ripped through them. So, you've got basically one of the guys who's dominated the power play with the ball against the most solid opening pair aside from Faf and Kohli in the IPL this year. That'll be a massive battle at the Chepauk, and I think actually the sort of middle overs bit where all the spin comes in may not be quite as much of the focus, but it will be the other side of that. It's wrist spin versus finger spin, isn't it? That'll be an interesting dynamic as well.
Mohammed Shami, I mean, we should, while we're being positive, we should be really positive about his season. 13 matches, taken 23 wickets, an average of 16, an economy of 7.5, and a strike rate of 13. He's basically taken 2 wickets a game and not really going for any runs, and those wickets are power play wickets. It's a pretty fearsome display, isn't it? Is he in the MVP race, would you say, Dan?
He's been super impressive. I don't think there's been a power play bowler in the comp this season, that's for sure. But yeah, and I'm really, really, really kind of shocked and pleasantly surprised with his redemption arc, so to speak. But Jack, I've got to tell you something, right? When you said, they've got to go to the Chepauk, I thought you were going to go into like a semi-Kevin Keegan rant.
I love it if we beat him.
They've got to go to the Chepauk and get something.
Anything else on this match? I mean, the only other notable thing I think was that it's the highest score a team has ever conceded in a match where one of their bowlers has taken a fifer, which tells you a lot about Sunrisers.
And I think there was another one about was it only the second time where there's been a fifer and 100 in the same match, or
really?
Certainly doesn't happen very often either. So cool. Good game for the statos.
It is.
If you're going to break a record, it's always going to be a dubious one, wasn't it?
Sunrisers.
Yeah.
Not one you want.
No, I haven't got anything else from this match. It was the icing on the cake, really, for a group stage of a good group stage for Gujarat. So we can head over to do some questions if we want. We've got about 9 minutes. Let's go with. Well, let's finish off on Sunrisers. We started on Sunrisers, and let's finish on Sunrisers. And we had a question from outsiders, which bridges a couple of teams who have both not made the playoffs, Punjab and SRH. Basically, why are some teams perennial underperformers, and what factors affect their performances season after season? Dan, go
on. Okay, so the primary reason, in my view, is there's a lot of reasons. You can throw certain other factors in, such as captaincy or owner involvement and stuff like that. Ultimately, the vast majority of the time, the teams who are not performing particularly well is because their recruitment is bad. It's simple as that. Pep Guardiola in football once said 80% of success in football is determined by recruitment, and obviously that is in line with budget as well, obviously. But he's absolutely right. How many times have Sunrisers recruited really, really badly at auction over the last few years? Quite a few. And then, the mega auction was a horror show, in my opinion. And then they did really well in the mini auction here, and then hired a coach with no experience. So, yeah, I think that explains it. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, teams have got to be a lot more professional. We've seen in football recently, owner involvement doesn't end up well. Max, you mentioned about watching a lot of Chelsea this season, and I think that's a very apt situation there. And look, obviously, some people will say, well, the owners have got a right to get involved because it's their business. But ultimately, Let the professionals do their job.
They have a right to, yeah, but good ownership is about knowing when not to. I mean that's just sensible management, isn't it?
How, whether that's in cricket or whether that's in business, that's exactly right. You know, you delegate responsibility to people who you've recruited, who have that skill set to deal with the problem at hand. And I would suggest that, based on Markram's comments, at least, that there might be something in that.
Yeah, he didn't look happy at the end of the game as well, Markram. He actually looked.
Do you think he'll be? I mean, you said he was one of the few guys they should keep. But do you think he'll go at the end of the season? Do you reckon he'll ask to be let go if he's not sounding like a happy boy?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I listed 11 players, but ultimately, not all of them 11 might actually want to stay.
No,
and the players have got much more power than they used to have. And so, yeah, absolutely, there's definitely an argument to suggest that he might not want to stay, or that the management might not want him. He just because might have let the cat out of the bag a little bit in a couple of media interviews. So, yeah, it's possible.
I think another factor with that, talking about player power, and this is a bit tangential. I think 2 or 3 years ago, he'd have had to basically stay for the cash. But now he can pick up a payday in 3 or 4 other leagues around the world. Yeah. So even if he quit, and didn't perform and didn't get picked up in next year's auction, he's still probably going to make $1 million playing for Eastern Cape and, I don't know, picking up...
Same franchise though, isn't it? Sunrisers Eastern Cape, he's
not going to not get picked up, is he?
No.
Somebody's going to have Aidan Markram in the SA20 and they're going to pay him decently 100%. For it. Get a gig in the CPL, float around in a couple of other leagues, do a bit of blast. Yeah.
100, yeah.
Like he's not. He has, like as you're saying, Dan, a lot of power in this situation, and so do a lot of these overseas guys now. It's no longer.
Yeah. Quite an interesting dynamic.
That's actually why Alex Hales isn't there. Like he said that they're not paying me enough. And there was an interview recently. I think was it Stokes, and I don't know if Stokes put his name to it, but he was the picture on the front on the story. So I'm going to say it was Stokes. Basically saying like if you look at what we get paid in the IPL versus other leagues, it's not enough. Or not other leagues in cricket. I mean other leagues. The NFL, basketball, the Premier League. Yeah. The revenue streams,
other leagues with comparable profitability,
they're getting paid
popularity
2/3 or half what they should be, and you can walk away. Low. You don't have to play in it if you're Ben Stokes. You're going to be a millionaire from your central contract. You can go and do the SA20 and pick up some bucks there, and do one other, T20 tournament, and it will hit your earnings, but at a certain point. These guys are going to think about whether it's worth the hassle. To be honest, let's do.
Well, he's got 50 lark at the moment, but he plays in all these leagues around the world. He's bowled, I think, pretty well in this tournament, but he's been in and out of the team because of various overseas combos and stuff like that. You can fully well understand it. Don't really fancy that's a 50 lark. I'll take my chances back at auction, and he'd probably be quite justified in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. We had one more that I wanted to do, I think, before we wrap up the show from which is a good name. Max, you can start us off. You can start us off on this one. With the IPL approaching 1,000 sixes.
Yes.
What do you think the ceiling is for run rates, etc., in future years? Thanks to everyone who sent us in a Twitter question, by the way. Like, we're not going to be able to get to them all because we had a lot, but at the Cricket Pod, we do appreciate them, and I might go through and type some answers to some. There you go, Max. With the IPL coming up to 1,000, where's the ceiling for run rates?
Well, I mean, I don't think 300 is far off.
Whoa!
I mean, what's the record individuals? What's the record team score in IPL? 260 odd, something like that.
I think is it 200? It's 260 or 270. It's the game where Gale went nuts.
Yeah, and I mean, that's another 40 runs or so to 300. But with the way things are going, it'll happen, and it could happen in the IPL. I think it'll happen somewhere else before it happens in the IPL. I mean that much. I would say. But you can see the Chinnaswamy in a game with this Mumbai Indians batting lineup. if everyone or if Glenn Maxwell just kept going, like there are so many players now that have the ability just to hit sixes all over the ground, and if it comes off for them on their day, and with the sort of the larger number of teams, the sort of spread of talent, and in particular we saw this year, bowling talent being spread about a bit more. There's been a maybe a bit more opportunity for some of the elite batters to tuck in. So, I mean, we've already seen so many scores over 200. So I think there's already a sustained evidence of higher run rates. But I reckon in 4 years there'll be a 300.
I am not so bullish on this. I think that the run rate, it will go up, but I think it'll be a lot more gradual. And I think there are a few reasons.
I'm not saying it's going to be regular 300.
No, I don't know, but I think like more generally speaking, I'm 300 might happen. Like that could. But what I mean is that I don't foresee some crazy run rate jump to like 10 in the next few years. I think it will be very gradual, and we'll be measuring it in 0.1 of a run part per over a tournament. And I think there are a few reasons for that. I think bowlers, it's an arms race, isn't it? And bowlers are in that arms race too. I think that there's, in a league of hitters, there is potentially an advantage in making your home pitch very difficult to bat on. Which will suppress run rates. And I think the other thing is that if we were to see a big jump in run rate, I think you'd see administrators make rule moves to address that. So an example of this, 2015 World Cup. Do you remember the power play, the last 10 overs? You were only allowed 4 men on the boundary, and like scoring rates were just ludicrous. Like nobody could stop anyone scoring boundaries in the last 10 overs, so they changed it, and then run rates in ODIs went down, unless you were England, who changed the game. Actually, during that time, while England were bullying everyone, the ICC and the ball makers, Kookaburra, started to reinforce the seam on the ball to make it harder to just plunder the power play, because effectively they saw that the game was going in a direction that they didn't want. Since then, since 2019, we've actually seen run rates come down a little bit, and bowling averages go down significantly in the power play. So I think the game adjusts. So run rates will go up, but it will be almost imperceptible, and it will be actually generally quite
what I would say is I think that we're already at a point where we're seeing the run rates going up, and maybe that it won't be that perceptible in the short term, but sort of over the last 5 years, it's already happened. We're already
it is, but like you wouldn't know over an entire season of the IPL unless you actually counted the runs up and divided them. But like you actually did that, you would not. It's visually virtually imperceptible. And when it goes beyond that,
was that the question?
No, but like the question was, will we see run rates go up because we've seen 1,000 sixes? I mean, like the answer is yes, but I think quite slowly. Dan, what do you think?
I agree with you, Jack. Actually, I'd be really surprised if we saw 300 this decade, unless there's some pretty significant rule changes. So really, you're looking at the boundary percentage and strike rate in T20 leagues. It started really developing an upward trend around 2016, and it is a very gradual trend. It's certainly not like, oh my god, look, teams have worked out how to double their boundary percentage or something like that. It's not like that at all. So it's very gradual. I think also we saw in the PSL a couple of games where 240 got chased, and everyone's like, wow, this is incredible. And that was at Rawalpindi with short boundaries on an absolute road. And I've spoken to people who were involved with those games, and they were really strong on the fact that it was just such extreme conditions. And so if it's extreme condition to chase 240, I think 300 is a long way off still. But the thing is, we can never really be sure because we don't know what's around the corner in terms of rules. So I think one of the reasons why the strike rates and the boundary percentages have gone up on average in this tournament this year is because of the impact player. So if you sort of tinker with that rule even more, maybe you have 2 impact players, or you let an overseas player become a fifth. That's where you could start to see a continued rise and get up to those really high run rates. But Obviously, we don't know if that's going to happen in the future.
There's also one of the things that you can't change to a point is the size of the boundary in terms of making it bigger, because grounds are a size. They are a certain size. So there's only so big a certain boundary can get. So if we get to a point where, someone can now hit the ball on average 5 meters further because, they've worked out training or bats got better again or whatever, then there's an element there that you can't really control, aside from, maybe playing with the ball a bit. But that's another thing I'd throw in. But I'm not sure I'd want to see 300. But I think it might happen.
I think we're quite a long way from the game changing much from where it is now, unless actually it becomes 10 batters v 5 bowlers. But even that, then you'd probably see better bowlers. I don't know. Anyway, look, we've done over an hour. That is the end of the cricket podcast for this week. We're back on Sunday, and that's actually confirmed. It's not like Max changing the day again. We'll be here on Sunday to recap the last 5 matches in the IPL group stage. Last call, actually. Who's going to the playoffs, Max?
So what did I say? It'll be LSG, Mumbai, and CSK.
That's 3 teams.
Well, because you're already there.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough. Dan?
So for me, it's now a shootout between Lucknow, RCB, and Mumbai for the last 2 places. Lucknow we're going to know first because they've got 15 points and they're playing the third last game, I believe. And then on the last day, there's the Mumbai Sunrisers first, which is going to be so fun to watch because they've got to turn around this run rate. And I think Max, you said earlier they might get about 400. Well, maybe this is
300. Yeah.
And then RCB are going to know what they need to do in the last game. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually, this is not data based at all. I've just got a feeling that Lucknow are going to bottle it against KKR, and RCB are going to get in yet again in that sneak in that 4th place. Mumbai will easily beat Sunrisers, so that's done.
So what could happen is that KKR destroy Lucknow, get themselves into the 4th spot, and that's what I think. KKR, Lucknow.
KKR are going to do it.
That's no.
What a shout that would be.
I think the top 3 now have got nice positions, and then I think Mumbai will win, and RCB will bottle it. That's my call. Right, lads, we're done. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much for watching. Wherever you're, partaking in the cricket podcast, click subscribe, click like, and share it with your friends. There's going to be a bunch of shows coming up for the playoffs, so this season is not over. It's the perfect time to get one of your cricket-loving buddies